2, guys. I'm looking for the remote. I'm going to pause the video until I come back. So see you. I found it. Today we'll be reacting. Also, forgot it's part 2. I'll get a high view and see you.
When all the lights in our Airbnb switched off, me and my son ran to the front door to find out what was going on. When we finally managed to pry it open, we were met with a huge pile of snow. Even our rental car was barely visible under the white. I called every emergency number,
I love
but none
his.
of my calls were going through, so I gently
I want
turned
guest
to my
account
son.
now.
Go inside. There must have been a blizzard. As soon as he did, I started sweating with panic, because now we were in the middle of nowhere with no phone signal, no source of food, and no way out.
He's
I
cooked.
ran to the fridge, and there was only enough food left for 3 days. I buried my face in my hands and walked to my son's room to try and tell him some version of the truth. But when I opened the door, he wasn't there. I heard screaming, so I ran outside and found him packing a 3rd snowman. I heard you on the phone, Daddy. We get to stay here forever. It's a winter wonderland. He unwound his red scarf and wrapped it around the snowman's neck. He doesn't have skin. He's colder than me. I laughed because my son was seeing our emergency as a chance to play together. I crouched down and started collecting snow with cupped hands because I figured distracting my son was the best thing I could do. We built 4 snowmen side by side and dressed them up with clothes from our wardrobe. Look, son, we have our own snow family. He went to sleep that night with a smile on his face, and even though I was panicking, I knew I'd done the right thing, especially 2 nights later when someone started pounding on the door. Because when I ran to see who it was, I opened the door to a rescue team. The one at the front nodded at the snowmen. My spotter caught a red scarf standing in a field, and we figured you guys were lost in the blizzard. My son grabbed my hand and bounced. They came to see our snowmen. All that time I thought I was keeping him calm, but his playing was the only thing that saved our lives. He pumped both fists and cheered, the same cheer from 2 nights ago. This time I cheered with him. When all the lights in our Airbnb
W!
switched off, me and my son ran to the front door to find out what was going on. When we finally managed to pry it open, we were met with a huge pile of snow. Even our rental car was barely visible under the white. I called every emergency number I knew, but none of my calls were going through, so I gently turned to my son. Go inside. There must have been a blizzard. As soon as he did, I started sweating with panic, because now we were in the middle of nowhere with no phone signal, no source of food, and no
How
way
did you
out.
not
I ran
die?
to the
My
fridge.
son in
There
the
was
snow
only
is
enough food
crazy.
left for 3 days.
Why am I so addicted to his stories? Me too, bro. I love it. I'm so addicted to his stories.
But when I opened the door, he wasn't there. I heard screaming.
But his story already used all his luck for 445. I don't know how to say it, but 45,317 lives. The fact the sun is enjoying in the situation is wild. Processing no way out. And proceeds to show you their past.
We built 4 snowmen side by side and dressed
I'm
them
gonna
up with
pause
clothes
right
from
now.
our wardrobe. Look, son, we have our own snow family.
Did a goal. I'm gonna try to complete the June compilation every day. I'll record often. I'm really not kidding. I gotta take small breaks on every. I think this is part 2 of part 3. I forgot. No, it's part 2.
I grabbed the last bag of BBQ chips off the shelf, but 2 kids snatched it from my hands and held it high over their heads. I was 4'2" and officially a midget, so when I jumped for it, I barely reached their shoulders. They pulled out their phones. Go on, little man, jump, and hysterically laughed. My face burned with shame, but I kept jumping because these chips were discontinued. I had driven to 13 stores $10 for this last bag, and nothing was stopping
They
me
are
from
not
getting them.
discontinued,
They waved
bro.
it over my head for the 10th time.
Why
But
are they
then
my
a hand
store
came
then?
from the sky. A 7-foot man was holding the chips
Well, I
up
forgot
over
these
punks'
stories
heads,
are
his
fake,
phone out.
sometimes.
Go on, jump for it. They jumped, but couldn't
They're
even
fake,
reach
but
his chest and
they
stormed off
just
embarrassed.
make
I smiled up at
stories.
him, but he was already looking at the label. Barbecue, my favorite. He opened the bag right there and literally stepped over me to keep walking. I swung as hard as I could and missed by so much I almost spun
I'm
out
gonna
of the
start
box. It was the bottom of the
story
ninth.
5.
We had a runner on third.
I'm
2
starting
outs,
hurt.
down
I'm-
by
I'm
one.
recording
The
this.
ump dropped into his squat behind me. Just put the ball in play, kid. I looked up at my dad in the bleachers and winked. I'm hitting this one over, Dad. He cupped his hands around his mouth. Send it, bud. The next pitch came in slow and right down the middle. I swung as hard as I'd ever swung in my life, and the ball
W.
cleared the fence by 10 feet.
Nah.
I dropped the bat and started running. Rounding first, I looked up at the bleachers to find my dad. He wasn't standing up. He was supposed to be standing up. He was the loudest one in the bleachers, and now he was just sitting with his hand on his chest. My
Nah.
mom was right next to him watching me through her phone,
Nah.
screaming, "Run, run, run." Second
Aren't
base,
you okay, your
Dad
husband?
still wasn't moving. By third, I was barely running. He fell forward over the bleacher rail, and I stopped halfway between
Oh,
third and home.
shoot.
Dad, I dropped the helmet and started running
Now,
off
if
the
he
field
stops
toward my
like
dad.
that for,
the ump
like-
had my dad on the ground, pumping
like
his
by
chest
round
with both hands.
1,
I fell to my
I'm
knees
literally
and grabbed
gonna
my
call
dad's hand.
an
My mom was
ambulance.
on the phone with 911 screaming our address. 5 minutes
My
later,
mom
the
died.
ambulance
That's so
pulled up and
sad.
the paramedics got him on a gurney. As they were loading him in, his eyes
What's a
opened
gurney?
and found mine. I saw it, bud. His grip tightened on my hand. I've never been prouder. Then they slid him in and the doors closed. I hit the only home run of my life, and my dad lived to see it. He keeps the ball on his nightstand. I was sitting in class when a Smurf walked in. It was my professor, painted head to toe blue with a white hat. and
I'm
everything.
sorry.
Half the
I
class
changed it,
started
okay.
laughing. He didn't react at all. He just set his bag down and started teaching like nothing was different. The girl next to me leaned over and whispered, "It's Smurf Day." I asked her what that meant. She just looked at me and said,
Stay
"You'll
quiet
see."
for a second.
After class, I grabbed one of the older students and asked him what was going on. He sat me down on a bench outside and told me the whole story. A few years back, the professor had a 3-year-old daughter. She was diagnosed with a rare brain disease and spent most of her life in a hospital bed. The
Rare?
Smurfs was her favorite show. Every night after his last class, he'd drive
Dude.
straight to the hospital and sit in the chair next to her bed.
You
and
call it
watch her
rare?
with
That's
her.
called
She'd
very
rest her
unlucky.
head on his arm, and
That's
they'd watch
unlucky. What
every
do you mean you
episode
call it
together
rare?
until
She's
she
unlucky.
fell asleep. He was a single dad. He couldn't stop teaching because that's how he paid for her treatment. So every morning he'd leave her in that hospital room and walk into a classroom
My
and
arms,
pretend
they
he was
hurt.
fine.
I
He'd come
hurt.
in with red eyes
My arms, they
and
hurt a
nobody said
lot.
a word. Eventually, some of his students found out what was
Shoot.
happening and put together enough money for him to take time off. He got to spend her last few weeks with her because of them. She passed away 3 days after his last class. Every year on her birthday, he walks into class painted blue from head to toe. He never explains it. He never talks about it. He just teaches the whole lecture looking like a Smurf because it was the last thing that made her smile. I was 12 and starving when I threw a chain over the electric fence around Mr. Hatch's apple tree. Sparks shot up everywhere and the wires went dead. My little sister was watching from under the bridge with Tommy and 4 others, gripping the moldy loaf we'd been splitting for 3 days. Mr.
Moldy
Hatch's
loaf,
porch
like-
looked down on that
Hold on.
bridge. All week he'd been on it biting into apples.
How does
and
it have
yelling
so
at
many
us.
legs?
These apples are the sweetest in town, rats. You'll never know. Tonight I was going to know. I climbed over and tiptoed across wet grass toward the tree. A stick snapped under my foot loud enough to wake a graveyard. I froze, but the house stayed dark. 3 steps later, motion lights flooded the whole yard. A door slammed open, and Mr. Hatch came
I have to
charging out
move
in his
very
back.
slowly.
"Get your hands off my apples, you little rat." I sprinted to the tree, jumped onto the lowest branch, and climbed as fast as I could. He came barreling across the grass with his head craned up at me and caught his foot on the chain I'd thrown
Why is
across
that
the
black
wires.
belt?
He flew shoulder first into the trunk so hard the whole tree shook. An apple the
Bro's
size
not
of
a
my fist
ninja.
dropped straight down and clocked him on the forehead.
Karma.
He went face down in the grass and
Is
didn't
that
move.
Karma?
I whistled
I don't know.
twice from up in the branches. Tommy was first
Tell me in
over
the
the
car-
fence with the
comments
rest
when
piling
that's
in
actually
behind him.
Karma.
They stood under the tree with shirts held open while I dropped apples down until every shirt was full. Mr. Hatch woke up to bare branches. Under the bridge that night, my little sister got the biggest one, and we ate until our stomachs hurt.
Your
Turns out he was
sister?
right about one thing. They really were the sweetest in town. My principal tried to shut down my silly band's business 4 times
Final
before
one,
he
I
gave
gotta
up.
stop.
At recess on Monday, a first
I
grader
continued
handed
to
me a
20.
dollar, and I peeled the glow-in-the-dark unicorn off my wrist and dropped it on his. Behind him, a dozen more kids were waiting their
His?
turn,
That's a her,
all
bro.
holding quarters. A second grader tried to trade me a half-eaten Reese's, and I told him cash only. By Friday, I had more cash than my babysitter made in a week, and Mr.
Nah.
Doyle was watching me from across the playground with his arms crossed. The next day, I was in math class when I heard Mr. Doyle on the intercom. "Effective immediately. No silly bands are permitted in the classroom." I rolled my stack into my pencil case before he finished talking. At recess, I sold from the bathroom line while he prowled the playground checking wrists. The next day, he was back on the intercom. No silly bands are permitted anywhere on school property. After the bell, I set up shop on the
Harry's
sidewalk
smarter.
6 inches past the school gate. Kids poured out and lined up while Mr. Doyle rushed to the property line, gripping the fence as every dollar went into my pocket. A couple days passed, and I was sitting on the couch when my mom answered the phone, and I heard Mr. Doyle's voice. Your son is running an unsanctioned business outside our school, and I need you to put a stop to it. She covered the phone and turned to me. How much have you made? I held up the wad and told her $92. She got back
Nah.
on the phone and said, sounds like he's learning, and hung up.
Nah,
Then
he's
that
smarter
Friday,
than
Mr.
anyone.
Doyle stood at the gate
Smarter than
watching me
Pixel.
set up the line. He didn't say anything, didn't take notes. He just shook his head, turned around, and walked back inside. The next morning, he stopped me in the hallway. I tightened my grip on my arm because I figured he was finally taking my stash. He pulled a wrinkled dollar bill out of his pocket. My daughter wants the glow-in-the-dark mermaid. I slid it off my wrist and put it in his palm. Cash only. Eric opened my snack cabinet and groaned. There's no snacks in here. I stared at the Pringles, the
Bro,
ice cream,
what do you mean no
the
snacks?
and chocolate candies. What do you mean
I'll
there's no
instantly
snacks?
eat the
Eric looked at
Lay's.
me with red
The
eyes and a
Lay's,
goofy
and
smile.
I love
I'm all
Lay's.
the munchies, bro. I want Cheetos. The only open store is a 90-minute walk. Just eat the Doritos. Eric slammed the cabinet closed. I want Cheetos, dude. I groaned.
Well,
and put on
Doritos
my
is
jacket.
exactly
Stepped
taste like
outside and
Cheetos.
Eric rubbed his hands.
Doritos,
The walk will go
more
quickly,
sharp
dude. Trust me.
when
But
you
5 minutes
eat
and
it
heavy rain
vertically.
started pouring. My hair got wet. And
I
my
feel
pants
I
immediately
felt the pain
became
before.
drenched. Eric, let's turn
Actually
back.
did it
You don't
today.
even have a jacket. But Eric smiled and put his arm around me.
Yesterday
The
was
longer
my
the
sister's
path,
birthday,
the louder
so-
the crunch, bro. I gave in and continued, my shoes squelching with every step. But then we reached the most dangerous street in the city. Maps showed this was
Guys,
the
I
only
forgot
way.
to
And when
I
looked back,
forgot to look
I
at the
saw a sketchy
stores.
man in a hood behind us. I felt my heartbeat in my throat and instantly tapped Eric's shoulder. Let's go home. Someone's following us. But Eric just kept walking, smiling to himself.
And if
thinking
if I
about the
accidentally
Cheetos.
go
I
on
turned
story
around
6 or
and saw a
9
man close
or
enough.
7.
I caught a glimpse of the
Don't say
knife
6, 7
and
comments,
the
bro.
paranoia
Well, not that
kicked in.
much.
Eric, dude, he's behind us. He's got a knife. We have to go, man. We have to go. Eric simply turned around and stared right at him. Him? Nah, he's just vibing. Just focus on the Cheetos, bro. He turned back around, and I began leading us down the weirdest turns and alleys until we finally lost him. I asked Eric to just call an Uber home the whole way, but he kept assuring me the Cheetos would be worth it. We finally reached the store and stepped inside, wet and soaking, my hands shaking because we'd nearly been killed. Eric walked to the Cheetos
If I
and
do
picked them up. He
if
looked at
I-
them closely, then shook his head. Actually, man, I don't really want these. He put them back, and I flailed my arms in anger and disbelief. Eric grabbed my shoulder. Bro, they were $2. I'm not paying $2. I can just eat the Doritos back at your place. My friend Darren laced up his new Jordans and
So I
pumped
got
his fist in the
minus
air.
2
Now
times.
I can jump like Jordan. I held back my
Part two
laugh.
to his
disrespect,
story
Darren,
complication.
But you're 350 pounds. You can't jump like Jordan. But he looked
Part
past
two
me, and his eyes settled on the rim
of my
like he was
life.
ready to
Part
soar.
two,
If I
his
hang
story
on that rim,
compilation.
you owe me $100. I instantly shook his
I'll
hand.
do the- I'll
ready
do
to
the final
commit
one on
the
my
easiest
free.
money of my life. Darren walked under the rim
20
and
my
rubbed his
free.
new shoes. Just like MJ Baby,
17.
he squatted down and jumped as high as he could. His arms stretched through the air, and he almost touched the net. His face deflated, and he looked at his new shoes like they'd betrayed him. Told you, dude. Now give me my $100. I walked over, but Darren walked past me. I'm going to touch that rim. He dragged a chair from one side of the gym.
Nah, a chair ain't
onto
gonna
the
work.
rim.
It's
Then
probably
he stacked
break it.
another. He stacked 4 chairs until they reached the rim, then put his
He's
foot
gonna
on the
break
first.
it, I'm not
Darren,
kidding.
Are you seriously? I want to be like MJ, he interrupted. The chairs creaked and a leg splintered as he climbed, and I looked away because I couldn't watch him fall. But he reached the top and grabbed the rim with both hands. Told you I could jump like Jordan. He hung on the rim.
He's gonna break
but
it.
Then the mount of the rim cracked. I froze, and Darren's face dropped as we heard another crack. I'm getting down, but right as he put his foot on the chair, a spiderweb crack shot across the glass. The whole backboard exploded, and Darren fell backwards, clutching the snapped rim. He bounced off the chair pile and dropped to the floor. I ran over. Oh my God, Darren, are you okay? He smiled with his front tooth missing. I don't think I can jump like Jordan, but at least I can break backboards like Shaquille O'Neal. He reached into my pocket and pulled out my wallet while still on the floor. What? I touched the rim, didn't I? My dad came home beaming.
Okay. I'm going room 2 and have completed that. Okay, guys. I'm gonna turn off TV. I might do another complication on here. With my video trick with my mama on. Okay. Let's go back to my room. Let's sleep. Holy, bro. Have you ever had this effect on your eyes? Like, if you just weigh something, like, oh, Like we're like, oh, like transparent as you.